Hi, my name is Jihad, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about the transgender community in India. Transgender people have existed all around the world since ancient times, and the treatment that they face today is really different from the treatment that they would have faced in the past. It is easy to forget that discrimination was not the default treatment for transgender people throughout history. In Leslie Feinberg's speech at Camp Trans in 1994, transcribed in Trans Sisters, the Journal of Transsexual Feminism, issue number 7, she says, "Sex change has ancient roots and was considered a sacred path to walk. And these male to female priestesses were the earliest ancestors of our transgender sisters today. They were the ones who fought against patriarchal class society and upheld matrilineal traditions." I'm going to be talking about some of these transgender priestesses, the Hijra community in India. Now, the Hijra community in India played important roles both socially and religiously. Socially, they served the royalty, and it's documented in translating the Hijra in symbolic reconstruction of the British Empire in India by Shane Ganan, that Hijras in the Mughal court were many in number and they were well dressed. They served as both court and personal servants to the king. They would also serve as guards for his harem, and they would be messengers for him. Now, religiously is where their main importance lies. Religiously, they served an incarnation of the mother goddess named Bahuchara Mata, and it is documented in Neither Man Nor Woman by Serena Nanda that the Hijras would perform a sex change operation where they would remove their genitals, and in this removal of their genitals, they establish a connection to both masculinity and femininity, and with this connection, their divine power came from. In myths about Hijras, the role of gender and commonly held beliefs about them, Humayra Jami states that the Hijras would go to births, wedding services, and they would host temple services, and they would go there with their begging bowls, and if you gave them money, they would bless you. But if you didn't and you insulted them, they would give you a curse. It is further documented in Govindasamy Agoramurthy's In Living on Societal Edge, India's Transgender Reality, that the Hijras would go to the first ceremonial head shaving of a baby called a mundan, and at this ceremonial head shaving, they would purify the baby by giving them a blessing. They would also host a 16-day temple festival in which they were celebrating the marriage between the hero god Iravan and the female incarnation of the male god Krishna, Mohini. The Hijras would play the role of Mohini and would symbolically marry Iravan, and they would have an incredible celebration, and it would last 16 days, and at the end of it, they would break the bangles on their arms to symbolize the death of Iravan. This was the main religious tradition that the Hijras celebrated. Now, while this was the case in the past, this changed when the British came over and instituted their imperialistic rule. In translating the Hijra, symbolic reconstruction of the British Empire in India by Ganan, he states that the change happened when the British instituted slander campaigns and certain laws to criminalize the existence of the Hijra. The first law that they instituted was Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which outlawed homosexuality and also outlawed anyone having sexual relations with anyone who was a Hijra. They later further criminalized the very existence of the Hijra by instituting the Criminal Tribes Act of 1971. And in the Criminal Tribes Act, it stated that they could not go out in public in their female dress, they could not do any of their religious services, and they could not adopt younger Hijras. It was through this criminalization, both legally and through their slander campaigns, that the discrimination against Hijras arose. And it was because of this discrimination that the Hijras had to organize together in tribal units called houses. And these houses would have wide areas of territory, and each house would have a house chief, and the house chiefs would meet to decide on rules and regulations for the Hijra communities. And under the house heads would be gurus, and under the gurus would be chelas. Now, the chelas would serve the gurus and offer up some of their money and offer up their obedience and loyalty. And this offering up of money was to support the Hijra community as a whole. The gurus in return would offer them protection, safety, a shelter and would offer them food. But it wasn't just purely for economic or survival benefits. The Hijras and Gurus formed a sort of familial bond between each other. The Gurus served as a mother figure to the Hijras and to the Chelas, and the Chelas served as sister figures and cousin figures to each other, and daughter figures to the Gurus. This familial and economic bond that they formed with each other helped them to survive in a society that harshly discriminated against them. They are mainly forced to work sex work to survive, and so they needed this organization to help keep them alive. Transgender people have existed all around the world since ancient times, and it is only recently that the discrimination against them has become so widespread. This discrimination happened after British imperialism, and the Hijras served such important and vital roles in the community before imperialism. Things are changing and things are getting better, but there's a lot of change that still needs to happen. Anyways, this was my presentation on the transgender community in India, the Hijras. As a transgender woman myself, I have a strong emotional attachment to this, and yeah, I hope you all enjoy.